Chapter 1. The Outbreak. The alarms blared through the pristine corridors of the Noveria research station, shattering the eerie calm of the frozen planet. Dr. Alara Vasar raced down the hallway, her heart pounding in her chest as she clutched a datapad tightly in her hand. "What's happening?" she demanded as she burst into the main laboratory, her eyes wide with fear and confusion. Dr. Lucas Sorensen, the lead researcher, looked up from his console, his face etched with grim determination. "It's the artifact," he said, his voice tight with tension. "It's activated some kind of defense mechanism. We've lost containment." Alara felt a chill run down her spine that had nothing to do with the cold air of the research station. She had always been wary of the alien structure they had unearthed, but the promise of scientific discovery had overridden her concerns. "What do you mean, lost containment?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Lucas shook his head, his eyes fixed on the readouts scrolling across his screen. "The artifact released some kind of virus," he explained, his words coming in a rush. "It's unlike anything we've ever seen before. It's spreading through the station like wildfire." Alara felt a wave of panic rising within her, threatening to overwhelm her. She had dedicated her life to solving the mysteries of the universe, but now she found herself confronted with a horror beyond her wildest nightmares. "We have to evacuate," she said, her voice shaking with fear and resolve. "We can't let this thing spread beyond Noveria." Lucas nodded, his face grim. "I've already sent out a distress call," he said, his fingers flying over the console. "But we're in the middle of nowhere. It could be days before help arrives." Alara closed her eyes, trying to steady herself. She knew that every moment they delayed, the virus was spreading, infecting more and more people. She had to act fast, had to find a way to contain the outbreak before it was too late. "Then we'll have to do it ourselves," she said, her voice ringing with a newfound determination. "We're the only ones who can stop this thing." Lucas looked up at her, his eyes searching her face. "Are you sure about this, Alara?" he asked, his voice soft and uncertain. "We're scientists, not soldiers." Alara met his gaze, her jaw set with resolve. "We're the only ones here," she said, her voice steady and clear. "We have to try." As she turned to leave the lab, Alara felt a sense of purpose settling over her, a clarity of focus that she had never experienced before. She knew that the road ahead would be difficult and dangerous, but she also knew that she had no choice. She was a scientist, a seeker of truth and knowledge. But now, she realized, she was also a protector, a guardian of life and hope. And she would stop at nothing to save her people and the galaxy from the horrors that awaited them. With a deep breath, Alara stepped out into the corridor, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. The outbreak had only just begun, but she knew that it was up to her to find a way to stop it, no matter the cost. Chapter 2. The Quarantine. The research station was in chaos as Alara and Lucas raced through the corridors, the sound of alarms and panicked voices echoing off the walls. They had managed to seal off the main laboratory, but they knew it was only a matter of time before the virus spread to the rest of the facility. "We need to initiate a full lockdown," Alara said, her mind racing as she tried to formulate a plan. "Isolate the infected areas and prevent any further contamination." Lucas nodded, his face pale and drawn. "I'll head to the control room and initiate the quarantine protocols," he said, his voice shaking slightly. "You get to the medical bay and start working on a cure." Alara hesitated, torn between her desire to help the infected and her fear of the virus. She knew that every moment she delayed, more lives were at risk. But the thought of facing the horrors that awaited her in the medical bay filled her with a sense of dread. "I'm not sure I'm the right person for this," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I'm a virologist, not a doctor." Lucas placed a hand on her shoulder, his eyes searching her face. "You're the only one who can do this, Alara," he said, his voice filled with a quiet conviction. You have the knowledge and the skills to find a cure. I believe in you. Alara felt a surge of emotion welling up inside her, a mix of fear and determination that threatened to overwhelm her. She knew that Lucas was right, that she was the only one who could stop the virus, but the weight of that responsibility settled heavily on her shoulders. Okay, she said, taking a deep breath to steady herself. I'll do my best. As Lucas hurried off towards the control room, Alara turned and headed for the medical bay, her heart pounding in her chest. She could hear the sounds of coughing and moaning growing louder as she approached, and the acrid smell of sickness and death filled the air. Inside the medical bay, the scene was one of utter chaos. Patients lay on every available surface, their faces pale and sweat-soaked as they writhed in agony. Medical staff rushed back and forth, trying desperately to ease their suffering, but it was clear that they were fighting a losing battle. Alara felt a wave of nausea washing over her as she surveyed the scene, but she forced herself to push through it. She had a job to do, and she couldn't afford to let her emotions get in the way. As she set to work analyzing samples of the virus, Alara's mind raced with possibilities. She had never seen anything like this before, a pathogen that seemed to defy all known laws of biology. It was almost as if it had been engineered specifically to resist all conventional treatments. Hours passed as she worked feverishly, testing one potential cure after another, but nothing seemed to have any effect. The virus continued to spread, infecting more and more people with each passing moment. Just as Alara was about to give up hope, a sudden realization struck her. The virus wasn't just a simple pathogen, but a complex bioweapon designed to adapt and evolve in response to any attempts to stop it. She knew that she would have to think outside the box, to find a way to outwit the virus and its creators. But as she stared at the screens in front of her, watching the infection rates climbing higher and higher, she felt a sense of despair washing over her. How could she hope to stop something so powerful, so insidious? How could she find a cure when every attempt seemed to only make things worse? As tears streamed down her face, Alara closed her eyes and took a deep breath. She knew that she couldn't give up, that too many lives depended on her. She had to keep fighting, no matter how impossible the odds seemed. With a renewed sense of determination, Alara turned back to her work, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. The quarantine may have bought them some time, but she knew that the real battle was only just beginning. Chapter 3. The Revelation. Days turned into weeks as Alara worked tirelessly in the medical bay, her eyes red-rimmed and her hands shaking from exhaustion. The virus continued to spread despite her best efforts, and the death toll climbed higher with each passing day. Lucas had managed to maintain the quarantine, but supplies were running low and tensions were running high. The surviving members of the research team were starting to lose hope, and Alara could feel their desperation weighing heavily on her shoulders. I don't know how much longer we can hold out, Lucas said one day, his voice heavy with fatigue. We're running out of food and medical supplies, and the virus is still spreading. Alara looked up from her microscope, her eyes haunted by the images of the suffering she had witnessed. I know, she said softly, her voice barely above a whisper. But we can't give up. Too many lives depend on us. Lucas shook his head, his expression grim. We may not have a choice, he said. If help doesn't arrive soon, we'll all be dead anyway. Alara felt a surge of anger welling up inside her, a frustration born of helplessness and despair. She knew that Lucas was right, but she couldn't accept defeat, not when so much was at stake. There has to be a way, she said, her voice rising with determination. We just haven't found it yet. As if in response to her words, one of the computer screens behind her suddenly lit up, a flashing red light indicating an incoming transmission. Alara rushed over to the console, her heart pounding with a mix of hope and fear. This is Dr. Alara Vasar of the Noveria research station, she said, her voice shaking slightly as she opened the channel. "We have an emergency situation and need immediate assistance." There was a moment of static, and then a voice emerged from the speakers, calm and measured. "This is Commander Ethan Riker of the Galactic Alliance. We received your distress call and are en route to your location. What is the nature of your emergency?" Alara felt a wave of relief washing over her, so powerful that it nearly brought tears to her eyes. She had never heard of Commander Riker before, but the authority in his voice gave her hope that perhaps they were not alone after all. "We've uncovered an ancient alien artifact that has released a deadly virus," she explained, her words tumbling out in a rush. "It's spreading rapidly and resisting all attempts at treatment. We need help containing the outbreak and finding a cure." There was a moment of silence on the other end of the line, and then Riker's voice returned, tinged with a new sense of urgency. "Understood, Dr. Vasar. We'll be there as soon as possible. In the meantime, do everything you can to keep the virus contained and protect your people." As the transmission ended, Alara felt a renewed sense of purpose flowing through her, a determination to see this crisis through to the end. She may not have all the answers yet, but with the help of the Galactic Alliance, perhaps there was still a chance to save the galaxy from the horrors that awaited it. Turning back to her work, Alara redoubled her efforts, pouring every ounce of her knowledge and skill into the search for a cure. She knew that the road ahead would be long and difficult, but for the first time in weeks, she allowed herself to feel a glimmer of hope. The revelation that they were not alone, that help was on the way, had given her the strength to keep fighting, to keep searching for a way to stop the virus before it consumed everything in its path. And with that knowledge, she knew that she would never give up, no matter how impossible the odds seemed. Chapter 4. The Arrival. The arrival of the Galactic Alliance ship was a moment of pure relief for the exhausted and beleaguered researchers on Noveria. As the sleek vessel descended through the planet's atmosphere, Alara felt a surge of hope rising within her, a sense that perhaps their nightmare was finally coming to an end. But as the ship touched down and the airlock hissed open, Alara's relief quickly turned to concern. The figure that emerged from the vessel was not the calm and authoritative Commander Riker she had spoken to, but a woman with piercing blue eyes and a face etched with determination. "Dr. Vasar?" the woman asked, her voice clipped and efficient. "I'm Captain Alara Vasar of the Galactic Alliance. Commander Riker sends his apologies, but he was called away on urgent business. I'll be leading the mission to contain the outbreak." Alara felt a flicker of disappointment, but she pushed it aside quickly. There was too much at stake to worry about protocol or chain of command. "Thank you for coming, Captain," she said, extending her hand in greeting. "We're in desperate need of your help." Liara nodded, her eyes already scanning the research facility with a calculating gaze. "I've read your reports, Doctor," she said, her voice tinged with a hint of skepticism. "You believe this virus is of alien origin?" Alara hesitated, suddenly unsure of how much to reveal. She had kept the true nature of the artifact a secret from all but a few trusted colleagues, fearing that the knowledge could be used for nefarious purposes in the wrong hands. "Yes," she said finally, choosing her words carefully. "The artifact we discovered appears to be some kind of bioweapon, designed to target all forms of organic life. We've been unable to find a cure or even slow its spread." Liara's eyes narrowed, and Alara could sense the wheels turning in her mind. "I see," she said slowly, her voice thoughtful. "And you have no idea who created this artifact or why?" Alara shook her head, feeling a sense of frustration welling up inside her. "No," she admitted, "but whoever they are, they must be incredibly advanced. The technology behind this virus is unlike anything we've ever seen before." Liara nodded, her expression grim. "Then we have our work cut out for us," she said, turning to her team of scientists and soldiers. "We need to set up a secure perimeter around the artifact and begin analyzing its structure and composition. Dr. Vasar, I'll need you to provide us with all the data you've collected so far. Alara hesitated, torn between her desire to protect her research and her desperate need for help. But as she looked into Liara's eyes, she saw a glimmer of understanding, a recognition of the enormity of the task they faced. Of course, she said, handing over a data drive containing all her findings. But Captain, I must warn you. This virus is unlike anything we've ever encountered before. It adapts and evolves at an incredible rate, resisting all attempts at treatment. We've lost a lot of good people trying to stop it. Liara's expression softened, and for a moment, Alara could see the weight of responsibility that rested on her shoulders. I understand, Doctor, she said softly, but we can't give up. The fate of the galaxy may depend on what we do here today. As the team set to work, Alara felt a renewed sense of purpose flowing through her. She may not have all the answers, but with Liara and the resources of the Galactic Alliance on their side, perhaps they still had a chance to stop the virus before it consumed everything in its path. But even as they worked, Alara couldn't shake the feeling that they were racing against time, that every moment they delayed brought them closer to a catastrophe beyond imagining. And deep down, she knew that the true nature of the artifact and its creators remained a mystery, one that could hold the key to their salvation or their destruction. Chapter 5. The Conspiracy. As Liara and her team worked tirelessly to unravel the secrets of the alien artifact, Alara found herself drawn deeper into the mystery. She spent long hours poring over the data they had collected, searching for any clue that might lead them to a cure for the virus. But the more she studied the artifact, the more she realized that there was something they were missing, some crucial piece of the puzzle that continued to elude them. And as the days stretched into weeks, she couldn't shake the feeling that they were running out of time. We're not making enough progress, she said one day, her voice tight with frustration as she looked up from her terminal. The virus is still spreading, and we're no closer to finding a cure than we were when we started. Liara looked up from her own work, her eyes shadowed with exhaustion. I know, she said softly, but we can't give up. We have to keep trying. Alara shook her head, feeling a sense of despair welling up inside her. But what if we can't? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. What if this is beyond our capabilities? What if we're just delaying the inevitable? Liara was silent for a long moment, her expression thoughtful. There's something I haven't told you, she said finally, her voice hesitant. Something that Commander Riker shared with me before I left. Alara felt a surge of curiosity mixed with apprehension. What is it? She asked, leaning forward in her chair. Liara took a deep breath, as if steeling herself for what she was about to say. The Galactic Alliance has been tracking a group called the Ascendancy for some time now, she said, her voice low and urgent. They're a secretive organization, believed to be searching for advanced alien technology to further their own agenda. Alara felt a chill run down her spine, a sense of foreboding that she couldn't quite explain. What does that have to do with us? She asked, almost afraid to hear the answer. Liara's expression darkened, and Alara could see the weight of responsibility that rested on her shoulders. We believe that the Ascendancy may have known about the artifact long before we did, she said, her voice grim, and that they may have deliberately released the virus in order to study its effects. Alara felt a wave of shock and horror washing over her, a realization of the depths of the conspiracy they were facing. But why? She asked, her voice shaking. Why would they do something like that? Liara shook her head, her expression troubled. We don't know for sure, she admitted. But if the Ascendancy is behind this, then they must have a reason. And whatever it is, it can't be good. Alara felt a surge of anger and determination rising within her, a resolve to stop the Ascendancy and their twisted agenda no matter the cost. "We have to stop them," she said, her voice ringing with conviction. "We can't let them get away with this." Liara nodded, her eyes glinting with a fierce light. "Agreed," she said, "but we have to be careful. The ascendancy is powerful and well-connected. We can't afford to make any mistakes." As they set to work with renewed purpose, Alara felt a sense of clarity washing over her, a realization of the true nature of the battle they were facing. They were no longer just fighting a virus, but a shadowy organization with unknown motives and resources. But even as they raced against time to uncover the truth and find a cure, Alara knew that they were not alone. They had each other, and the strength of their convictions to guide them through the darkness. And with that knowledge, she felt a flicker of hope rising within her, a belief that perhaps, just perhaps, they could still find a way to save the galaxy from the horrors that awaited it. Chapter 6. The Sacrifice. The truth about the Ascendancy's involvement in the outbreak had changed everything. Alara and Liara worked with a newfound sense of urgency, knowing that they were not just fighting a virus, but a powerful and ruthless enemy that would stop at nothing to achieve their goals. But even as they made progress in their research, the situation on Noveria continued to deteriorate. The virus had spread beyond the confines of the research station, infecting the planet's small population and threatening to spread to the stars beyond. Alara knew that time was running out, that every moment they delayed brought them closer to a catastrophe beyond imagining. And as she studied the data they had collected, a terrible realization began to dawn on her. "The artifact," she whispered, her voice trembling with a mix of fear and excitement. "It's not just a bioweapon. It's a key." Liara looked up from her work, her eyes widening with sudden understanding. "A key to what?" she asked, her voice tight with tension. Alara shook her head, her mind racing with possibilities. "I don't know," she admitted. "But whatever it is, the Ascendancy wants it badly, and they're willing to sacrifice anything or anyone to get it." Liara's expression darkened, and Alara could see the weight of responsibility that rested on her shoulders. "Then we have to stop them," she said, her voice filled with a quiet determination. "No matter the cost." As they worked to unravel the final secrets of the artifact, Alara could feel a sense of destiny settling over her, a realization that everything she had done, everything she had suffered, had been leading her to this moment. And when the final piece of the puzzle fell into place, she knew what she had to do. "I have to go back," she said, her voice trembling with a mix of fear and resolve. "Back to the artifact. It's the only way to stop the virus and prevent the Ascendancy from getting what they want." Liara's eyes widened with alarm, and she reached out to grab Alara's arm. "No," she said, her voice fierce with concern. "It's too dangerous. We'll find another way." But Alara shook her head, a sad smile playing at the corners of her mouth. "There is no other way," she said softly. "The artifact is the key to everything, and I'm the only one who can use it." As she prepared to make the journey back to the heart of the outbreak, Alara could feel a sense of peace settling over her, an acceptance of the sacrifice she was about to make. She thought of all the people she had lost, all the suffering she had witnessed, and she knew that this was the only way to make it right. And as she stepped into the artifact chamber, the pulsing energy of the device washing over her like a wave, she felt a sense of purpose and clarity that she had never known before. "Goodbye, Liara," she whispered, her voice echoing in the stillness of the room. "Remember me." And with those final words, she let the energy of the artifact flow through her, a searing, blinding light that consumed everything in its path. In the end, Alara's sacrifice saved the galaxy from the horrors of the outbreak and the machinations of the Ascendancy. But her legacy lived on, a testament to the power of one person to change the course of history, and to the enduring strength of the human spirit. And as Liara looked out at the stars, she knew that she would never forget the woman who had given everything to save them all, the woman who had shown her the true meaning of courage and sacrifice. For in the end, Alara's story was not just a tale of science and discovery, but a reminder of the power of hope and the indomitable will of the human heart. And that was a legacy that would endure long after the stars themselves had faded from the sky.